The Ancient City. A study on the religion, laws, and institutions of Greece and Rome.
Numa Denis Fustel De Coulanges.
Book 3rd, The City. Chapter 5, Worship of the Founder. The Legend of Æneas.
The founder was the man who accomplished the religious act without which a city could not exist. He established the hearth where the sacred fire was eternally to burn. He it was, who, by his prayers and his rites, called the gods, and fixed them forever in the new city. We can understand how much respect would be felt for this holy man. During his life men saw in him the author of a religion and the father of a city. After death he became a common ancestor for all the generations that succeeded him. He was for the city what the first ancestor was for the family,
Lar familiaris.
Household god, spirit of the family.
His memory was perpetuated like the hearth fire which he had lighted. Men established a worship for him, and believed him to be a god, and the city adored him as its providence. Sacrifices and festivals were renewed every year over his tomb. It is well known that Romulus was worshipped, and that he had a temple and priests. The senators might, indeed, take his life, but they could not deprive him of the worship to which he had a right as the founder of a city. In the same manner every city worshipped the one who had founded it. Cecrops and Theseus, who were regarded as having been successive founders of Athens, had temples there. Abdera offered sacrifices to its founder, Timesius, Thera to Theras, Tenedos to Tense, Delos to Æneas, Cyrene to Battus, Miletus to Neleus, Amphipolis to Hagnon. In the time of Pisistratus, one Miltiades went to found a colony in the Thracian Chersonesus. This colony instituted a worship for him after his death.
According to the ordinary usage.
Hiero of Syracuse, having founded the town of Aetna, enjoyed there, in the course of time,
The worship due to founders of cities.
a city had nothing more at heart than the memory of its foundation. When Pausanias visited Greece, in the 2nd century of our era, every city could tell him the name of its founder, with his genealogy and the principal facts of his life. This name and these facts could not escape the memory, for they were a part of the religion, and were recalled every year in the sacred ceremonies. The memory of a great number of Greek poems has been preserved, whose subject was the foundation of a city. Philochorus sang that of Salamis, Ion that of Chios, Crito that of Syracuse, Zopyrus that of Miletus, and Apollonius, Hermogenes, Hellanicus, and Diocles composed poems or histories on the same subject. There was not, perhaps, a single city that had not its poem, or at least its hymn, on the sacred act that had given it birth. Among all these ancient poems which had the sacred foundation of a city for their theme, there is one that has not been allowed to perish, because its subject rendered it dear to a city, and its beauties have rendered it precious to all nations and all ages. We know that Æneas founded Lavinium, whence sprang the Albans and the Romans, and that, consequently, he was regarded as the first founder of Rome. There had been clustered about him a multitude of traditions, which we find already recorded in the verses of old Naevius, and in the histories of Cato the Elder, when Virgil seized upon this subject and wrote the national poem of the Roman city. The arrival of Æneas, or rather the removal of the gods of Troy into Italy, is the subject of the Aeneid. The poem sings this man, who traversed the seas to found a city and transport his gods to Latium.
Dum condere turbem. Inferretque Deus Latio.
Until he should build a city. And bring his gods into Latium.
We must not judge the Aeneid after our modern ideas. Men often complain at not finding in Æneas bravery, passion. They tire of that epithet of pious which is continually repeated. They are astonished to see this warrior consulting his penates with a care so scrupulous, invoking some divinity at every new turn of affairs, raising his arms to heaven when he ought to be fighting, allowing himself to be tossed over all seas by the oracles, and shedding tears at the sight of danger. Nor do they fail to reproach him with coldness towards Dido, and they are tempted to say, with the unhappy queen,
Nullis ille movetur. Fletibus aut voce sulla stractabilis audit.
By no tearful pleas is he moved. nor yielding does he pay heed to any voices.
But this is because there is no place here for a warrior, or a hero of romance. The poet wishes to represent a priest. Æneas is the chief of a worship, a holy man, the divine founder, whose mission is to save the penates of the city.
Sum pius Æneas, raptos qui ex hoste penates. Classe veomecum.
I am pious Æneas, who carries my penates, snatched from the enemy. With me in my fleet.
His dominant quality ought to be piety, and the epithet which the poet oftenest applies to him is that which becomes him best. His virtue ought to be a cold and lofty impersonality, making of him, not a man, but an instrument of the gods. Why should we look for passion in him? He has no right to the passions, or, at any rate, he should confine them in the depths of his heart.
Multa gemens multoque animum labefactus amore. Ius tamen divum insequitur.
Groaning much, and with his heart weakened by great love. He yet fulfills the commands of the gods.
Already, in Homer, Æneas was a holy personage, a high priest, whom the people venerated as a god, and whom Jupiter preferred to Hector. In Virgil he is the guardian and savior of the Trojan gods. During the night that completed the ruin of the city, Hector appeared to him in a dream, and said to him,
Troy confides its gods to thee, search out a new city for them.
At the same time he committed to him the sacred things, the protecting statues, and the sacred fire that was never to be extinguished. This dream is not simply an ornament placed there by the fancy of the poet. It is, on the contrary, the foundation on which the entire poem rests, for it is through this that Æneas becomes the depositary of the city gods, and that his holy mission is revealed to him. The herbs of the Trojans, the material part of Troy, has perished, but not the Trojan civitas. Thanks to Æneas, the sacred fire is not extinguished, and the gods have still a worship. The city and the gods are with Æneas, they cross the seas, and seek a country where it is permitted them to stop.
Considere Teucros. Errantesque deos agitataque numina Troiae.
That, the Teucrians, the wandering gods, and the restless powers of Troy, may settle, Latium.
Æneas seeks a fixed home, small though it be, for his paternal gods.
Dis sedem exiguam patris.
A humble home for our paternal gods.
But the choice of this home, to which the destiny of the city shall be forever bound, does not depend upon men, it belongs to the gods. Æneas consults the priest and interrogates the oracles. He does not himself determine his route or his object, he is directed by the divinity.
Italiam non sponte sequor.
Not willingly do I seek Italy.
He would have stayed in Thrace, in Crete, in Sicily, at Carthage with Dido.
Fata obstant.
The fates bar the way.
Between him and his desire of rest, between him and his love, there always comes the will of the gods, the revealed word.
Fata.
We must not deceive ourselves in this. The real hero of the poem is not Æneas. The gods of Troy take the place of a hero, the same gods that, one day, are to be those of Rome. The subject of the Aeneid is the struggle of the Roman gods against a hostile divinity. Obstacles of every kind are placed in their way.
Tantae molis erat Romanam condere gentem.
So much labor did it cost to found the Roman race.
The tempest comes near engulfing them, the love of a woman almost enslaves them, but they triumph over everything, and arrive at the object sought.
Fata viam inveniunt.
The fates find a way.
Things like these would interest the Romans to a wonderful degree. In this poem they saw themselves, their founder, their city, their institutions, their religion, their empire. For without those gods the Roman city would not have existed.